So what are you gonna do? And you're like, I don't know. All I know is that God is with me. I don't know. All I know is that I heard the Lord speak. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but what I know, I'm gonna be fine because He spoke to me. You know. So the voice of God is foremost, and you can't do without.
Hey guys.
Hello guys.
Introducing Sis B. Woo! Yes, episode 5. We at it again as Disruptors. We managed to locate a disruptor.
Yep, we did.
In her own element, flowing, soaring high.
Yes.
Sis Busi Nkantsu is here with us, joining us. And we are so grateful. We'll give her a moment to just introduce herself to us and just tell us a bit about herself.
The way you say Nkantsu is like an English thing.
What is it?
Is that how you say it? No, I want to hear it from you.
I need to you say she's a cheese girl.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
let her be cheese.
Oh, guys.
Let her
Yeah,
be cheese.
no,
All
yeah.
she wants.
If I hadn't known your surname. Look, if I hadn't known your surname, I wasn't gonna catch that one.
And then,
Yeah. No,
She also missed
Mrs. Nkantsu, welcome to
Thank
the
you
show.
so much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
coming.
Cool.
Really honored. Look at you.
so I'm really happy to be here, guys. I
Yeah.
just, I feel honored that the Lord has permitted this
Yeah.
an opportunity for us to just hang
Yes.
and share notes
Yes.
and chat.
Yes.
Because
yes.
this is what it's all about.
It is.
Yeah, so happy to be here, guys. Happy
Yeah.
to be here.
So, tell us a bit about yourself. Just a summary of who you are, where you started, what you're doing now. That is whether career-wise or family-wise or calling-wise, all of those things. You know, as Sismusi as a whole.
Cool. So, obviously, Busi Nkantsu.
Come on.
Come on now.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Told you. Nkantsu. There's a tone about
There's a tone
it, you
and
know.
it's settled.
Ah.
Nkantsu.
Yeah.
Nkantsu.
Say it.
Nkantsu.
Nkantsu.
Yes,
Like
but
that.
we unfit.
Yeah, you are, guys.
Yeah.
Love you, Pauls.
And we're tuning.
We are.
Don't let them separate us.
We can't.
No.
We can't. Listen, we're connected in the spirit.
Oh. Guys, I'm gonna give you a room, guys. It's been real.
Listen,
Oh, God.
The women's world here.
so, saying that he's not sure. So born again, child of God,
Yes.
born of the Spirit.
Yes.
And I'm just business-wise, I'm a businesswoman. I run my own business. Well, currently the one I run is with my brother. It's based in Durban. It's a furniture business. But I started with franchising, Steers and Fisherways. I've been to owning factories, biscuit factories. So now I've settled into my passion. But
So
the
the
Lord
passion was not food.
it wasn't really food. More than saying it wasn't food, I think God disrupted my path.
I get that.
I just had to sneak it in.
Okay.
So God disrupted my path. And He changed the course of my direction because I thought I had settled into something that I love. I mean, from when I finished school, I saw how God was just blocking every single path that I wasn't supposed to be in. I saw how initially, having had passion for corporate, the Lord will not give me any opportunity there. Kept blocking. And as soon as I started, going the business route, I saw things happening. I saw God provision. God providing for everything that I needed. And when that happened, I got lost in it. I got lost in it, but God knew where he wanted me, where I was going, and he understood that because I had delved so deep into my work, into my business, into that lifestyle, I had lost contact of where God wanted me to be. So he disrupted my path. And when he did that, he asked me to seek him, seek his kingdom. So I had to do that in order for me to find myself in him, find my path, my passion, but most importantly, my purpose. Sure. And when I did do that, it wasn't easy. It really wasn't an easy path for me to take. It was quite challenging, and it still is. Because when God disrupts your path, sometimes he doesn't do it in a conventional way. Even people around you won't understand. So I saw how God did that, isolated me, stripped me of all that I thought I was, all that I thought gave me purpose, gave me an identity. And I found myself in him, and I found him. And having been saved for many years, I truly knew that at that point, when he separated me from everything that I knew, stripped me of everything that I thought gave me identity, I finally found myself in him, and I understood the books he wrote about me.
Sure.
And throughout my path, I wasn't leaving out those books. I wasn't leaving out what God wanted me to become in him. And when I found that out, then I was established. I was established in my ministry. I was established in myself. I knew exactly what God expected of me as his child. And when I realized that, then I was in a position to say, now what do I want to do? What do I love? And I realized I love nice things.
Are you guys really? Are you twins? Are you related? There's just too many similarities here.
When the blood of Jesus flows, streams, and purpose shapes us, it's very fun.
Guys, it's too much. I regret asking this question.
So in a nutshell, that's where I am, and I am married, have 3 kids. That's
boys,
where I am.
girls?
2 girls and 1 boy. It look big.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I had to have it look big. I don't die.
Okay. Are you done now?
I'm so done. I am so done. Like, God, I'm really done. Like,
you need to stop hanging with my wife. I think you're gonna influence her. Funa army here.
This is Chasing Purpose.
It's a chasing purpose. Yeah.
It's
You know, when
chasing
God is just aligning things, who are we to fight him?
Yeah. Okay. Let's not lose our track, guys. Wow.
That's not
You know, you said a very rich opening statement, and
Very rich.
I don't know if I want to just take a bit from what you said and just continue with it, or I still want to hear much. I think we've covered everything, though. We've covered everything. Dave?
I'm just stuck on this part where you say God established me. You know, like as Christians, we talk about being a new creation, right? But there's that point of establishment, and I feel like what can I say? That's the real part that the Lord wants us to get to when he's saying a new creation.
Yeah.
True.
You know, where he strips you of all that you thought you were, and then he makes you see what he sees you as.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I mean, no. I always say he established me because, we go throughout life thinking that we're living, and that we're living the life that is meaningful.
Yeah.
only to find out that we're just existing and we have absolutely no impact in the world. I mean, I remember when God started stripping me off of everything that I thought that gave me identity. I keep using that word for lack of a better word. When he started stripping me off, I remember it was so painful because I couldn't take it. I couldn't take the embarrassment. I couldn't take the pain. Oh, couldn't take the pain of him just removing everything that I thought will give me, a meaning of life. When he stripped me off that, remember this one day I was looking out into my yard. I was in my kitchen door. I must narrate this story. I was in my kitchen door, just looking out through my yard, and I was crying. I was like, Lord, but this is so painful. This is so sore. I can't take this pain anymore. And the Lord asked me. I literally heard the Lord speaking through the trees. His voice just penetrated through the trees. I heard him speaking to me. I said, Gandhi, what do you think this whole thing is about? What do you think life is about? What do you think you are about? Who are you? Like when you are to stand on a stage and introduce yourself, who would you say you are? Who do you stand for? What do you stand for? Why do you think I created you? Like you go on about what you want, what you want to do, what you want to achieve. I mean, I was thinking magazines, businesswoman of the year, this, that. You go on about ticking the boxes of goals, what people consider as goals. But you never asked me what I created you for. You never asked me who you are in me. You never asked me where you fit into this generation. Yet you cry about something that you don't even know belongs to you. And I just still couldn't get him. I couldn't get him.
Yeah.
But as days went by, his voice just kept ringing in my head. And I eventually asked him, then, who do you think I am? Who do you say I am?
Ah, come on.
Like, who am I?
Yeah.
I've been introducing myself to the world, to my peers, to my children as a certain type of a person, to my husband. I mean, I've been married close to 20 years now. And I've been introducing, talking to my husband, treating him and carrying myself in a certain way, thinking that was who I was. But if you say I'm different, then who am I?
Sure.
Who am I?
So I want to track back, in terms of your receiving salvation. Firstly, were you born into a Christian family, abazalwaneni, or so hlangenephi noThixo umamkelephi? You've had an eventful life, and we will do our best to just take every stage of your life to just so that a person who is watching can just actualize and sort of relate with you. And also where you are right now, because you are a sum. I quote Martin, you said, what did he say? You become the sum total of all your seasons.
Oh wow!
So when you are sitting here, you've had to go through all of those things. So the first one is really your birth, your being born again. Where were you born? The location, and also where did you receive Jesus? Just that story, just around you getting.
Cool. So I was born.
Cross section by. Yeah.
I was born
Wait.
in Mlazi.
Yeah.
Come closer. I can see you like swinging that way.
Oh yes, I do.
Yeah.
So that at least.
Okay.
Yeah, when
I
you swing,
swing,
you don't get cut.
Yeah.
Okay.
And please don't fall.
That's another one.
Physically,
this is dangerous. Me and you being this close together is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I was born and bred in Mlazi.
Yeah.
P section.
Yeah. You see, I knew those sections there. Yeah.
There are sections.
Did you
There
know?
gotta be
Yeah.
sections. Yeah.
I don't know.
Is it?
Apparently, there's a place called Ayadini or something like that. Yeah.
Do it!
No, I hear about the place all the time, though, so yeah.
It's a good place to evangelize. Huh?
Yeah.
Very good place. It is. Huh?
Yeah.
So many souls. I bet you when you go there, all you see is the souls. And you're passion for the soul just
on another
kills you. Just kills you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, which is good. Peace action and last.
Peace section
Yeah.
in Mlazi. Yeah, I grew up in Mlazi, moved to a place called Ebluff in Devon. From there, we moved to Carrington Heights in Devon. Was actually born again when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
Prior to that, I always say I was born again at 13. But from the age of 11, because I used to go to a Christian center, the DCC in Devon.
Oh, yeah.
So every Sunday, they will have altar calls. And I tell you, every single Sunday, I will go in front, crying, repenting of all my sins, wanting to enter heaven from the age of 11. I will do that.
I relate.
Every
I also
single
relate.
Sunday, I will be crying and just, but so I could have been earlier that I had really received Jesus. But I just always say 13 because that is when I was really conscious about living for him, making a decision to move with him and journey with him. So yeah, that's where I grew up. I do not come from a family that is all saved, even though my mother is the one who led me to Christ.
Okay.
My stepmother is the one who introduced me to Christ. Wonderful woman of God, full of faith. So, because my mother died when I was 13, around 13
Oh,
years.
okay.
Yeah. And it was interesting because it was around about the time.
I was about to say.
Round about the time when I first heard the voice of God,
Yeah.
it was literally the day she died. The day she died. I was distraught, I was crying, and I was uncomfortable. Nobody could comfort me, so I kept crying and crying, and soon enough I heard this audible voice of God. I knew it was him. I knew it was him because every single time I would go up in front crying and sobbing, it would be because I heard his voice. So when he started just conversing with me, all he said was, "Don't cry, don't cry." He spoke to me like my father. He said, "She's at peace. She's at peace." I literally kind of felt my mother's soul being at peace. I never saw it, but I felt it being at peace. And his voice calmed me down. And I was calm. But minutes later, I started screaming, just crying, sobbing. And now everybody's comforting me, thinking, "Oh, shame Lengani is still crying over." No, I wasn't crying over that now. I was crying over the voice of God. I heard you, Lord. I started worshiping him. I'm like, "I heard you. I glorify you. I magnify you, my God. You, my God." Because I remember I was one of those kids who will say, "If my mother ever dies, I'll die along with him." But that day I realized that my mother died, but I got one who's everlasting. I got one who will journey with me. I got one who will, who will nurse me back to life. So yeah, that is me in a nutshell. But yeah, that's that's
Your encounters are so epic.
Yeah. And also, so you obviously left the childhood and you went potentially to high school varsity.
Oh yes, Obanja, I must talk to that. Oh yes, I went to Grosvenor Girls High School in Devon.
Yeah, that's where they speak a lot of English.
Funny enough, though, they do speak a lot of English, ne?
Yeah.
But I was one of those who was not about to be a coconut. Lalela, I was dead set in making sure that I will not be called a coconut.
Yeah.
In a way, I don't know if that did me any justice, like any service, any good service, because I mean, the whole purpose of me going to a multiracial school was so that I'll learn how to speak English. So now if I go there and start looking down on the English that I'm here to learn, and it defeats the purpose of me, my parents paying money for me to go there.
Yeah.
So, but I went to Grosvenor Girls High School, where I was involved in the SEO there. We saw God move there. We saw God move there. So God has just been faithful throughout my years. Let me just tell you the story. I remember this one time. I know you're gonna edit it. You must just edit, but it's just a good story to tell.
Cutting it.
It's just a good story to tell. I remember this one time I was in matric at that time, and during SCO, the presence of the Lord filled the whole entire place. Children were screaming. People were not understanding what was going on, and we could not control it. And mind you, we're fellowshipping during the breaks, and now the time to go into another class was just at hand. And nobody could be controlled. We still couldn't control the crowd. God was just moving. The Spirit of the Lord was just in that place in a mighty way.
Yeah.
And the vice principal came and said, Busi, come here. What's going on? I had to apologize because understanding that as much as we are of the Spirit, umoya prophet to prophet, the Spirit, we are able to control ourselves and respect authorities and respect boundaries and all that. So I had to just humble myself before her and apologize and promise this will never happen again. But she still said, how you want to get them into class? You did this. I'm like, I did not do this, ma'am. I promise you, I did not do this. I promise you, I did not do this. We had no control over this. So God has just been faithful. Got married, went to varsity because I got married. I won't mention the age.
I was like, on the track, it does that.
No,
I nearly said.
Went to varsity. I got married, and just God has been faithful throughout. I will not.
And you've been married for 20 years?
Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years. This is our 20th year. No. Almost 20 years.
Hey, you're going to look like this when you've been married for 20 years.
Yes. Because
So don't be scared of
3 kids later, you don't even look like, you look like still in your first. No, the journey is going well. I've got hope.
You guys are kind. You guys are kind.
No, serious.
You are kind.
She's
But
trying
I
to be
can't.
humble now. Yeah.
I'm not cutting that
Wow. Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Where were we? Oh, at
it's
the
a lot.
thing. I think we just wanted to capture, the youth. You're still looking youthful, but your younger years in terms of your formative years, and also the whole thing of you were at primary school as a safe person, you transitioned to high school as a safe person, you went to tertiary as a safe person, and with all the challenges that are there and all of those things. And where I'm in a hurry to really get to is how do you sustain yourself as a girl at varsity in the midst of a lot of distractions and chaoses that take place there? And how do you still come out with your degree and still come out with your salvation and your God? Look, you can talk to whatever exposures that are there, be it alcohol abuses, drugs, pregnancies and all of that. So
Well, my journey is a bit different to most because I attended varsity Mina Singshadi. I was already married when I attended varsity. So, it was a bit different because I moved from one authority to another. Authority of parents to an authority of my husband, being the head of the family. So, temptations were there to do whatever. I was still young. So I was not invisible to the world. Nor was the world shut off from me. So I saw it all. I heard it all. But the thing about God is that if you got him, you got him. If he's got you, he's got you. So I don't know if I can ever say that I was ever at any point tempted to do anything. Because the most important thing, and I don't say that temptations are not there, they are there, but our journeys are different. We don't all have the same challenges. where the enemy will test you and tempt you with certain things mean that might not be effective in me.
Sure.
The enemy knows what's effective
Yeah.
in me. And he will chase me. He'll pursue me using those things. Now, I remember this one time God said to me, the enemy has traveled throughout eternity. He has traveled to eternity, back, into infinity, going forward.
Wow.
And he has found one thing that will destroy a Christian's life.
Yeah.
He knows the weakness of every single Christian. So he has done his homework. So he could not have tempted me with what was available in varsity, simply because he knew who it was. But he knew he knew exactly where he will just kind of like, tempt me or test me or try me. And he did just that in the later years of my life when, I had just been married for more years than most at that time when I started going through trying times.
Sure.
So varsity, God has just been faithful. Because as much as I can say that challenges and temptations were there, it was not my might. It was not by my own abilities that I was able to be shut off and not be as tempted as others would have been. It was the grace of God.
Sure.
I can't take glory for that and say, the enemy couldn't test me because he knew he wouldn't get me there. But it was just God who preserved me. And it's God who will constantly preserve every single person who seeks his face and who's, who relentlessly seeks after his heart. So that's just the faithfulness of God. He shows up.
Yeah, so the next thing that I just want us to talk about is obviously the generational, or let me put it like this, the different generations. I mean, from your story, you've we've tracked you back to Sunday school, teenagehood, and all the way to high school, varsity, and now we are where we are right now. And I think, this generation is characterized by a lot of things, things that are maybe supposed to be good things, access to information. There's a lot of good things going on, and but you always get sort of the old generation, even though I don't want to put you in the old generation.
Because I am though.
But, it always... it always fascinates me, when you're talking to somebody, but to my point, in terms of the older generation tends to sort of pick on the new generation. There's always that ngesikhathi sethu kwakungenje, things have regressed, and which is for me, I don't really have a stance. I know a lot of things that they make me sort of appreciate the old generation for. And there's also things that I wouldn't take away from my generation. So I just want us to have that conversation and just get your insights in terms of having been call it the 90s, or being a young person in those days, and what you see right now and what you're exposed to. What are your comments just around that topic?
Who had it easier and who had it?
Have we regressed?
Definitely, y'all have it easier. Joking. No jokes. I'm joking.
Siagoa, guys, siagoa.
No. Truth be told, Nyagoa, seriously.
Yeah.
You are. It's we joke, but it's true. It is gospel truth.
Yeah.
I'll say that our generation had it a little bit easier. I mean, there isn't a time in history that we can say that the enemy was like slowing down what he was doing. He pursued us in that generation in accordance to where we were, and he's pursuing this generation in accordance to where they are. And I'll say that we, in a way, kind of had it easier than you guys. Simply because we still respected the structures that preserved us, the structures that kept us within the confines of the church, kept us within the borders of the church. We feared. We had some sense of fear, whether it was for man or for God. But we still respected and still feared the rules and the laws.
Sure.
Now this generation questions the laws, questions the rules. And I suppose it makes sense. You know, the Bible says when the law increases, sin increases.
Yes.
So the law became too hard for this generation with all the access that you have to information, to the social medias. There's a lot of influence that is happening around you guys. And the world looks more attractive. And I like to say that the enemy is advanced to a level where you don't see him coming. Whereas we lived in like a cocoon. We were isolated from the world. As soon as you're saved, you're set apart, separated. You know, but you guys get saved and you live in the world.
I said straight.
That doesn't sound right. Believe,
You live, but it's okay because then you are living out Jesus' prayer that says, I don't pray that you remove them, but you keep them. You know, it's God setting the grounds for the great revival. In that we were in a place where we're isolated, where we thought we were better. And I say that I don't want to say it loosely. I want to be careful about saying that we thought we were better than the world. Listen, to a certain degree, we did think that we had to be isolated from them, and we felt better. But the Lord is setting the ground for the great revival, in that He's now taking you back to the people you have to influence. But now the dangers of this is that this generation, others are influenced by the very world that the Lord is sending you to, and you are somehow in a mere campaign to try and be relevant. You kind of like steal some of the things of the world, thereby corrupting the incorruptible seed, corrupting the seed of righteousness that God has created, God has formed in you. Now that I've made you to be this, go now and be amongst them and influence them, but don't allow them to influence you. We had it easier because we didn't have to, be exposed to the things that we chose just to walk around in a box. But the challenges in these days are just too much. I keep saying the enemy is too advanced. He knows exactly how to pull the strings, what to do, and you never see him coming.
There's something you said, I think you said we are fighting an enemy that's invisible.
It's invisible. When the Lord started teaching me about strategies of enemies, the types of enemies, He said this is not an era of David, where David could see the enemies of God. They could see and they could count the enemies of God. They could count the people that David knew. All the soldiers that were under his command. He knew who was the strongest, who was the weakest. He knew who to send to the front and who has to be at the back. But now it's a bit different in that we are under the umbrella of the church. We are the soldiers of the cross. But we don't see each other. We don't see our hearts. We don't see our brokenness. We don't. I remember when God was trying to reveal this field to me. He showed me a vision where I was led into the church, and they were Christians. They were brethren who were worshiping the Lord, glorifying the Lord, and just in the presence of the Lord. And there was a minister in front, preaching. And soon as I saw that, I saw a child. And the Lord, when He wants to say something about a church, He likes to use one of my children, so that the pain is I feel His passion for the church. So he came in Ukwezi, and as soon as he came in, he was wounded, but I couldn't see a scar. He was bleeding internally. I could see he was bleeding internally, but there was no sign of any injury in him. And the Lord says to me, turn around. And as soon as I turned around, I saw a lot of food in the house, in the church of God. The church was still continuing. I saw a lot of food, and there were a lot of vessels. And the Lord says, take a plate, give it to me. I will dish out food and you can feed the child and the child will be healed.
Wow.
The child will be healed. I kept picking up all the dishes. They were dirty. They were filthy. And the Lord said, the child is dying. But I'm saying, Lord, we can't see. I can't see where. I kept just turning him around and just, trying to see where the wound is. So we're living in days where the enemy is invisible, therefore his weapons are invisible, but they are mightier than they were before. They could see, David could see the sword coming at him. David could see the sword coming at his peers, and he was able to cover them. But Tina, we can't, because we don't even see the enemy coming. We have wounded children, we have wounded youth, we have wounded adults, wounded marriages, but we didn't even see the enemy coming. So it is so much dangerous, and you guys are living in tough times. But then it's the best time to seek the Lord, because the only one who's able to reveal the battlefield is Him. The only one who's able to reveal the enemy, the invisible enemy, it's Him. But if you think that you're going to live in these days with the same weapons we're living in the yesteryears, you are in for a surprise. The Lord keeps saying, if we do not adapt to the matters of the spirit in seeking Him to reveal the battlefield, to reveal the enemy for who he is, instead of fighting somebody and debating with someone in social media, trying to get your point across, trying to prove a point to that person. You need to see the enemy for who he is. You need to see the spirit behind even such conflict, even such debates. Abantu, but this is social media. Don't be so serious. Listen, there's an invisible enemy operating even in those platforms. Devouring, slaying the saints, and we don't see it. We don't see it. We have wounded Christian, we have broken Christian, they are injured, their scars are invisible. We don't see it. The weapons that has massacred this generation, Asis Bonanga, we didn't see them coming, but the Lord is raising another generation. The Lord is raising those who will seek Him to reveal the battlefield and reveal the true enemies. Yakumbula, when the Lord said, the word of God in Ephesians chapter 6, we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. The same principalities that Gabriel, Michael, in the book of Daniel, we're fighting against in those. This is where you guys are. You're literally fighting against principalities. You're literally not debating with your fellow brethren, but there's a spirit behind it. You're literally not trying to have an opinion on a certain platform. Platforms, all of them, they're infiltrated by the enemy's weapons, enemies' tricks, enemies' missiles to try and annihilate the church of God. So you are fighting against an invisible enemy, but the Lord who revealeth all things is able to reveal the battlefield. And once He does that, He knows who you guys are. He knows who you are.
Let's disrupt, guys. Let's disrupt.
Absolutely.
So, you spoke about challenges when you were being stripped and isolated from what you had sort of identified yourself as, and from all those things that made you secure. Now, usually what happens is when the Lord takes us to our desert place, trying to rebuild us for our purpose, we tend to turn back because of how difficult the journey is when the oven heat is turned on. How did you manage to keep yourself from turning back? How did you manage to keep yourself from looking back and being like the Israelites who said, we should have died in Egypt, unlike coming to So how what kept you going forward?
I think, the grace of God preserved me first and foremost. And the one thing that constantly kept me was His voice. And there's nothing like the voice of God. There's nothing like the sound of the voice of God. Because at times when you're going through difficult times, you can't even pray properly, like in a structured way. But the Lord teaches you new ways of praying. You know, you can't even read the Bible at times. Because it's just so hard, it's so difficult, and you're so broken.
Yeah.
But the one thing that kept me going was his voice. You might be in a wilderness, but if you're still enough, you quieten yourself for long enough, you will hear his voice. You will hear his voice. When he speaks, he gives you power for the whole year. When you speak, sometimes I like to say this, that sometimes he doesn't even speak to your situation. He doesn't speak what you expect him to say. He doesn't deal with what you want him to deal with because you're going through something. He commands, the fire. He commands the atmosphere of Uyo that is a heated oven. He commands it not to devour you. He speaks to it. He doesn't speak to you. He speaks to the situation. So you expect him to say something, but he speaks to the situation, and that's okay because his voice is good enough. His voice is sufficient. There is nothing like the voice of God. It's the same voice that when John the Baptist was locked up in prison, he called his disciples and said, "Go, ask Jesus if he's the one, or shall I wait for another?" Because he was expecting Jesus to come and set him free, to go and open the bars of prison and set him free. But Jesus didn't say that. Jesus said, "Tell John, the blind sees, the deaf hears, the dead are raised from the dead." Jesus spoke to the situation. Jesus spoke to the principalities that were attacking John. Jesus molded John back into order. Jesus reminded who John was. Jesus reminded by just those words. Jesus was saying, "John, remember, you must decrease so that I must increase." John, be proud, for your time is done. You have done well. John, you have done well. So Jesus wasn't talking to John's situation at that time. Jesus was not answering what John was asking, because John wanted him to come rescue him, but Jesus didn't do that. So sometimes you'll be in a terrible situation and the Lord will not pull you out. The Lord won't drop money from the sky and say, get rid of your debts, or take you out of the fire. You might be in the fire, but he will command the situation to preserve you and to obey you and to respect you, like in the manner of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were in the fire, and King Nebuchadnezzar saw the fourth man in the fire because he saw that God was with them in the fire. So the Lord might not necessarily take you out of that situation, but his presence and his voice, then they are enough to preserve you. Lord. They are always enough. I remember when the Lord speaks, sometimes you feel like a little girl and you will cry. It doesn't matter what he says, so long as he speaks. Soon as he speaks, it's like, oh my God, I've heard you, I can stay here. I've heard you, I can move. I've heard you, I can get up. So the Lord at times will not speak to where you are, but will command the situation. He will shape you. He will direct you. And John died in peace because he understood. Man, I remember who you are. And if you say you're doing what I know you to be doing, then you are who you said you are. And you are who you're supposed to be. And I can die in peace. I've played my part. I've done my role. You know. So sometimes God, the voice of God, because it was the voice of Jesus that spoke to John and redirected his thoughts and quietened all the anxiety he had, all the fears he had. Then John started embracing who Jesus was. So sometimes we start embracing the truth. We start embracing who Jesus is in our trials only because of his voice. And that sustains us throughout all the trials, through the fire, through the waters, the many waters that comes at us. So the Lord is always faithful. His voice, look out for his voice. Listen to his voice. It's enough. It's enough. Even when others have not spoken, when he speaks, it's enough. It's enough. The voice of God sustained me throughout all this and continues to do so. Right. Yeah.
Hey. Now.
Wow. Yeah, I like the fourth man. The fourth man. Just because you cannot see the fourth man doesn't mean that he doesn't exist.
True.
He's not looking. He's not part of the situation.
Oh, yes.
I can never dilute what you just said.
I know.
I was just picking up that.
Nah. Hi, I'm telling you, Guys,
Yeah.
but when you speak about the voice, I'm thinking about Moses and his first encounter with God was the burning bush, and the
Yeah,
burning bush had the voice of
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
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 And even there in front of the Red Sea, the voice of God said, "What do you
Yeah.
have in your hand?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Point it out."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and those were like very vital moments.
Moments, yeah. And,
So,
True.
and they will make or break moments.
They are.
Exactly.
They are. The voice of God always shows up just when you need it. And it's funny because sometimes people say, I've never heard God speak. I've never heard the voice. How does it sound like?
Yeah.
Many a times we think that the voice of God is our thoughts, you know, because we're constantly thinking. And sometimes you'll get an idea or something will come to your mind and you'll be like, oh, no. You know, it takes, we need to train ourselves to hear the voice of God, to separate, because it's distinct, it's different. But the enemy clouds it. And as soon as you hear the Lord speaks, the enemy rushes and complicates it and make it seem like they're your thoughts.
Yes,
You know. So I remember this one time at church, this lady was saying, you talk about, Mom Nkantsu, you like to talk about be silent before God so that you can hear his voice. Now there's nothing more difficult than controlling your emotions, your bodies and your thoughts and be silent before God. But at times it takes that to understand and hear the voice of God. It takes you training your body, controlling your body, silencing your mind, your thought and every being, because you do have the power. You have the power to do such a thing. So it takes you to do that in order to be silent before God till he speaks. If he doesn't speak today, you come back tomorrow and say, I'm here. Silent. Train yourself until you hear and understand and be able to differentiate between the voice of God, the voice of the outside man, your voice and the voice of the devil. It takes training you to silence everything around you, because the Lord speaks, and when he does, you are never the same. What he does when he speaks, I keep saying this, but when God speaks, he's commanding your body. And I keep saying he might not be talking to your situation, but when he speaks, what he does is that he controls your heart. We are operator. He does an operation on you that you know never expected, and you come out. Omunye will ask, so what are you gonna do? And you're like, I don't know. All I know is that God is with me. I don't know. All I know is that I heard the Lord speak. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but what I know, I'm gonna be fine because he spoke to me. You know, so the voice of God is foremost, and you can't do without. You cannot do without, especially in this generation.
Amen.